Hello, Johnny. It's great to
Hi,
have you.
hi, and thanks for the welcome. Just so you know, it's in England,
Yeah, it is. It is. So
not
tell me,
not 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 not, not Northern Ireland.
why did I even say that? Are you ever
That's okay.
stressed on air? I mean, how did that happen? I actually could ask our operator to zoom in into my notes, and it clearly says it's Northern England, and Yorkshire is actually your city, right? Or actually the region of your country.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I'm in Leeds. I'm originally from Liverpool, though.
Okay, so that makes me think of the football team, obviously. Actually, Jerzy Dudek used to play there. I don't know if you remember him. A great
I do.
goalkeeper.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd like to ask you about your experience with marketing. I know you've been doing so many things. There was a chapter when you were selling sunglasses, and I wonder if there's any connection with what you're doing today. I know it's both online, but tell me more, please. How has your life changed since then?
Well, yeah, selling sunglasses online. We were one of the first one of the first e-tailers
And you were
in
the
the dot
first one
com
in
boom.
Google, right?
Yeah, in the dot com boom back in the 90s. And we learnt a huge amount about selling online and social media. And back then, it wasn't called social media; it was called news groups or forums. But it was
Wow.
ultimately just people chatting online. And so for me, it's very natural. It's something that I, did from a very early age.
And I remember that 2004 for you was a game changer because it was the time that Google would change their algorithms. I hope we get time to talk about that because we will have a Q&A session to follow your speech. But first, I want to hear about, I guess, Facebook stories. Instagram stories and all of these things that we can do to get people into our content. And last but not least, TikTok.
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you very much for joining, and over to you.
Great, thank you. So, thanks for having me. Thanks for being here. Yeah, we're going to be talking about TikTok, Facebook stories, and Instagram stories. And it just yeah, this is working. So what is TikTok? Well, I'm sure you've had a play on TikTok. I'm confident of that. And so but for those that don't know, it's a social media platform where users watch and share 15 or 60-second videos with the ability to add different filters, sounds, or visual effects. But the key thing about TikTok is it's user generated content. That's what works well in the app. It's about trying to get your users, your followers, to create content, and those are the ones that tend to be the most engaging. So I'm going to give you some examples. I'm going to show you. I'm going to, take you on some wild ideas. But the idea is to try and get you to think about things and to try things for yourself. So one of the things that's worth looking at is some of the world's biggest platforms. And TikTok. This is back a year ago, January 20, the seventh biggest platform in the world, the seventh biggest social media platform in the world. And then if we have a look at the growth going back a year, nearly doubled at the beginning of February compared to October 19, nearly doubled in the amount of volume. And if you then have a look where we are today, it's gone through the roof, and it's a huge platform, and there's a lot of opportunity on there right now. So what can you do on TikTok? And one of the biggest things that's worth thinking about and considering is how to launch some kind of video trend or some kind of challenge. And I'll give you an example to help you understand what that is. But it's a way to increase press or brand awareness in your niche. It's a way to get people to your events. It's a way to get people listening to you and engaging with you. So it's about using a unique hashtag. And the idea is to incentivize users to get involved and to take part. So that could be competitions, it could be giveaways, it could be discounts for participants. In January 20, Fortnite, big gaming platform, Fortnite, they launched the Emote Royale contest campaign, and that was inviting TikTok users to create dances. The winner would have their original dance featured in the game, as well as winning merchandise and in-game credits. So I'm just going to show you a couple of examples, and hopefully the video and sound's going to work right now. Let's see if it does. So this was they went out to some influencers. They offered them some incentives, and the whole thing became viral. I'll show you the figures that it achieved, but let me just show you some of how the influencers created the engagement, and then some examples of what users put on the platform. So the campaign only ran for a week, but it had a huge reach. Over 550 million views of the hashtag. The competition came a few weeks before an expansive update to the game, helping Fortnite reach non-players and re-engage former players of the game. Let me show you some examples of the entrants. This platform is all about having fun, though. It's about simple content, but it's about having fun. It's about something that's entertaining. It's about stepping outside of your comfort zone and having some fun. And the reason that I'm giving you these examples is to try and get you to step outside your comfort zone. So we're going to talk about Facebook stories. We're going to talk about Instagram stories. We're going to talk about very visual things. But the key thing here is how can you input? How can you get some fun? And how can you be really creative and entertaining? So for organic reach, post content that users are more likely to engage with. The more people who engage with your content, the more likely that TikTok's algorithms will promote it to similar users. It's the same on Facebook, the same on Instagram. All of these platforms have a look at what happens in the first 60 minutes of you posting. So when you post something, what the platforms are looking for is high interaction. The higher interaction, the more chance more people are going to see it, especially if they were to log on even a day or 2 or 3 or 4 days later. There's a higher chance your content gets into their newsfeed. So what you want to do is come up with a plan of how you're going to create engagement in that first 60 minutes. And that could be asking friends, colleagues, it could be asking clients, could be asking suppliers. Videos that work best are simple, funny, creative, entertaining, and not sales driven. You will know Gary Vaynerchuk. He's got a digital marketing agency, Vanna Media. They're not on TikTok, but the brand CEO Gary is. Now he's amassed a huge following on TikTok, and he's got 4.7 million followers. He provides useful content for his desired audience. So it's typically around life advice, motivational advice, social media, entrepreneurial and money-making tips. The reason I show you Gary is because the stuff he does is really easy to do. It's very easy to copy the style. It's very easy to do something quite similar. He also uses a lot of funny and personal content, a strategy which allows users to see a more human side to his business. So let's just have a look at some of the examples of Gary on TikTok.
When people leave comments on YouTube, you suck, you're not funny, you're not interesting, feel bad for them. Because if they have enough time to leave a negative comment on your channel, they've lost. Just do, don't listen, do, don't listen.
Really simple, but effective.
Like, I was a very happy kid, but I hated school. And the world was telling me I was a loser. My teachers were telling me a loser. My friends' parents weren't saying to my face that I was a loser, but I could see it in their eye. Like, I used to sit there as a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old and look at my class and my teachers, and I'm like, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show all of you. You think I suck? I'm gonna be the biggest, best person on earth.
So those are just some examples of how Gary uses the platform. As we've said, we absolutely want questions, and I will hopefully be able to answer those for you. Happy to take them at any point. I'm not sure if that format will if this format will allow, but if we do have questions, I'm happy to take them. At the same time, once I've finished talking, we can go into the Q&A then. But please do make sure you start asking questions in the chat, and we will get to those questions for you. So let's moving on. The one of the big things on TikTok is the ability to advertise. Now, the reason I say it's big is because not a lot of people are currently advertising on the platform, which means that spend isn't high and the opportunity is big. The one thing that's worth bearing in mind is that the minimum spend on the platform is a bit higher than you'd typically spend on Facebook or Instagram. But all that means is that you could have a much bigger go on a few days than spreading it over a few weeks or months like you would on Facebook or Instagram. So the paid advertising on TikTok, it's still rare. So it's a bit more costly than other platforms, but there's a huge opportunity. It isn't saturated with ads, and so it delivers more bang for your buck. So when setting a daily budget for your campaign, there is a minimum daily budget spend of £50 UK GBP. I should have done it in dollars, maybe $60. When choosing a lifetime budget, there's a minimum daily spend of £20, maybe about $25. And the campaign objectives typically are traffic, conversions, and click-throughs, and views as well. So those are typically the things that you'd be looking at. The demographics that you can choose from, you can choose between male or female, you can choose on age range, you can choose on location. The thing about location, it's just worth bearing in mind. So I know that not all of you are in the UK, but as an example, if I wanted to, on Facebook or Instagram, or even LinkedIn, you can go very specific on a postcode or an area. That's not how TikTok works right now. TikTok is country only. So you can only select countries and do an advert that goes countrywide. So there is a limitation, but there is a huge opportunity because not a lot of people are using TikTok to advertise, which means if you were to advertise on there, there's a very high chance of your adverts being seen. You can select based on a variety of interests, so accessories, apps, education, beauty, tech, and electronics, but it is more limited than Facebook. And the other great thing is that they have a retargeting pixel that you can use. So you can put that pixel onto your website, which means that if someone comes to your website and they have a TikTok account, then you can remarket and retarget them on TikTok. And I would advise putting that pixel from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and TikTok on your website so that anyone that comes to your website, you can remarket to them on those social media platforms. So let's talk about Instagram and Facebook, and let's talk about those stories. If we have a look again at the world's most used social media platforms, what's amazing to see is that Facebook own 4 of the top 6 platforms. We've got Facebook, we've got WhatsApp, we've got Facebook Messenger, and we've got Instagram. 6 in the top 6 of the world's most used platforms, it's all owned by Facebook. So there's a huge opportunity there. And what's great about Facebook is that they own Instagram. And so if you were doing some advertising on the Facebook platform, you only need to do it on the Facebook platform, and that can control all your advertising on Instagram as well. And by the way, if you are ever going to do any advertising on Facebook, make sure that you sign up for their business Facebook account, because you can have so much more access, so much more data, much more opportunity to be creative with adverts, a lot more functionality, and much better reporting in the business Facebook advertising account. It doesn't cost anything to have one. Anyone can create one. But my advice is don't use your Facebook page or your Instagram page to advertise. Create a business Facebook account, attach the pages that you've got into that account, and use that account to control any advertising you do across any of those platforms. I'm being told that my connection to my clicker is not working. I'm just going to see if I can get back to it. It's died for some reason. If anyone is able to move the slide on, then please do. But I'm not able to. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. So it's a very visual platform. both of them are very visual. Instagram, much more visual than Facebook. And the way to use it is to people engage far more with stories than they do with just a status update. It's a visual social media platform which focuses on photo and image sharing. Instagram stories are one of its features, full screen photos and videos which vanish after 24 hours. So you can see an example on the right-hand side there. And there's a variety of built-in user-friendly features to edit images and videos. One of the things that we're going to talk about is those featured stories. And what I see is most accounts not using those to their full advantage. So you can put a story up on Instagram. It only lasts for 24 hours. It typically gets the most engagement doing it that way. But then after 24 hours, it goes. What you can do is you can start saving those stories in your featured stories at the top of your page. And you can, and I'm going to show you those in a moment. If you could go on to the next slide, that would be great. This is definitely not working. Oh, thank you. That's great. So on Facebook, we've also got Facebook stories. Now, Facebook stories are also very new. The great thing about that is a lot of people a lot of brands are not using Facebook stories. And what that means is that currently when you're on Facebook, the majority of stories that you're seeing are from your friends or your connections. There's not a huge amount of brand taking over in those Facebook stories. So my advice is to start really heavily using Facebook stories. What you always have to do is go back and understand who your audience is, what demographic they are, and what platform they're using. But if your audience is on Facebook and that demographic is there, then Facebook stories is a great opportunity because so many brands are still not using stories. And what's also worth mentioning is it's visible in the Facebook Messenger app as well. If we could go to the next slide, I'll give you some examples of some Facebook stories. Now, this is a brand called the Minimalist Baker. And the Minimalist Baker, the great thing that they do on their stories is that straight away, when you look at them, they all look very uniform. You can see from the brand colors, from the style, you know it's them. And they're very good at keeping that uniformity. So it's really important to consider how you're using the visual side of these platforms and how you can make sure that you're always looking on brand. And the Minimalist Baker are extremely good at doing that. If we could go to the next slide, that would be great. Thank you. So it's a very good example of how they use their highlights. They not only do their highlights to include plenty of helpful information and FAQs that the customers might have, but they also use many of their popular recipes as highlights. And they've amassed over 2 million followers. So you can see some of the these are these circles that you can see on the screen underneath their bio are those highlighted stories. And they've thought about how they can categorize those stories. And they've thought about, okay, if our users would come to this page, what would be the best content to be showing them? And how can we make this content as relevant as possible? How can we make it as helpful as possible? And how can we use it to really engage? Next slide. Thank you. So I talked about the paid advertising side of Facebook and Instagram. As I said, it is a lot cheaper with regard to the amount you have to spend on Facebook and Instagram than it is on TikTok. So it's a much lower budget. In fact, you could advertise for just 80 pence a day, less than $1 a day. Facebook has a very wide range of demographics to choose from, a huge range. You can choose from very specific on age, gender, location, a lot more specific than TikTok. You can go into the town, into the city, into the region, much more. Lots more interests. You can base it on device usage, on prior purchases, on friends of friends, on friends of pages, all sorts of different things. But as I said, you definitely need to be using the business Facebook advertising platform. And there's no extra cost, and it just gives you a lot more functionality. Next slide, thank you. Let me give you some practical tips on using Facebook and Instagram stories and marketing with them. So it's got to be very visual. It's got to be striking. You've got to make sure that it engages the user visually. That's the content that works best on Facebook and Instagram. And it's thinking about how you can incorporate your brand in that and making sure, like I said with the Minimalist Baker, that you could just instantly look at a picture and you know that's the brand. So it's designing stories. It doesn't have to take lots of time or talent. There's free online software like Canva, and it can be used really easily to create beautiful designs. There's thousands of free templates. It's a drag and drop interface, and they're already the right size. Optimal for animated functions and background music. What's worth mentioning, by the way, is that if you can also connect Instagram and Facebook. So you can post a story on Instagram and that can automatically go onto Facebook. But there's a couple of things to bear in mind. Some of the functionality, I think it's quizzes. There's a couple of bits of functionality that is available on Instagram, but isn't available on Facebook because Facebook is new to stories. So whilst you can cross-pollinate, which is a really good idea, just bear in mind that some of the functionality isn't fully available on Facebook. And that's the other thing to bear in mind as well, that when you are posting stories, to think about using some of the engagement tools that you can have on the story. So on the front of that video, you can put polls, questions, you can do hashtags, you can do mentions, all sorts of things that make it more interactive and connect with more people. So don't just think of the visual, but also think of the functionality that you're going to add to that story as well. If we could go to the next slide, that would be great. So here's just some examples of Canva templates where, very quick, very easy, canva.com. I wish I was on commission, but it's a free, you can use the free version anyway. And here you can very easily, quickly make stories that look really good. We're coming to the end of this, so if you do have questions, please do start putting them in the chat. I really hope we've got some questions. I'm here ready to answer them. If we go to the next slide, just to show you some of the more pastel shades that Canva can offer, more subtle, and again, just to show you, these are just off the shelf, very easy to use, very easy to brand, and visually appealing. So, as I said, we are coming to the end. I just wanted to do a quick plug whilst I'm here. So if we go to the next slide, I do have a podcast. You're very welcome to join me and become a listener. So if you just go to podcast.fleek.marketing and /listen, that would be great. And then the next slide just shows my details of where I can be found online. So if you go onto Twitter @Jonny Ross or on LinkedIn, you'll very easily find me. But now I'd love some questions. I hope this has just inspired you a bit. I hope it's given you some thoughts on how you could be visually strong on these platforms.
Thank you very much, Jonny.
Pleasure.
Yeah, so Jonny, actually, you just mentioned your podcast, and I appreciate that because I've actually listened to it a few times as well. And one of the recent episodes was about an issue that has to do with marketing strategy. I'm also very much into it, but what I really liked is that you had a seminar as well, or actually a webinar of the strategy, of marketing strategy. And what you did is not only did you invite questions, but you were also open to having people speak out their questions. So you kind of encouraged people to speak out or even to ask a question with a camera. And I feel like my experience with online events also shows that if we let the people know that they're so welcome, then it actually changes the whole atmosphere.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's one of the most difficult things that we both have. That we can't see the audience, and we can't see whether people are paying attention or whether they're enjoying it or whether they've fallen asleep. And so what we have to do is try and find ways to create that engagement that you would have face to face, but online is so difficult. And I think one of the ways, as you've rightly said, one of the ways to do that is to make sure that you give the audience the opportunity to ask questions, but also, depending on the event, to appear on video, to appear on audio, and to really make them feel wanted and valued, which you are.
And that for sure is also the case of this event. I've seen so many comments actually. So there's Elisa, there's Agnieszka, and there's so many people, including Jonny, your name fella, who actually had a question that had to do with TikTok. And I allowed myself to reply to that question because Jonny was interested in whether TikTok was not too young. So that he was like, wasn't that a medium for people who are younger than 18 years old? And my response was that people are actually aging with this platform.
Yeah, it's a really good point, but you're absolutely right. So if you look at the demographics, it is a very young demographic. However, if you look at the flood of people that are coming to TikTok, the age range is changing very, very quickly, and it's clear to see that children are bringing parents. It's becoming bigger, and the other big thing to say is that the sooner you create yourself on that platform, the sooner you can sort of own that platform from a brand point of view, so that when people do come to that platform, you're there and you don't need to build the following.
And you also get that early bird advantage, right?
Yeah.
Because the sooner
absolutely.
you join, the more followers you can get in a faster way. I feel like that's what Instagram was like in the 2010s, and I mean 2013, 2014. That was the time to start your account and to simply and fastly grow your fan base.
Absolutely, that's so important that unfortunately people do look at numbers. They look at how many followers you've got, and whether that's authentic or not. It's one of the things that people decide whether to trust you, whether they like you, whether they should follow you, and being there early helps you grow those numbers.
And you just mentioned the fact that TikTok will also have parents of the users, maybe grandparents even, who knows. But what is true for sure is that it is also kind of similar to what happened to YouTube, because I believe it was like 10 years ago when we would consider YouTube just this funny medium with funny pictures or videos of cats and dogs doing silly things. And today we have very advanced investigative journalism going on in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's changed massively, hasn't it? And I think that's the thing, that these platforms do mature, and you'll find that a new platform will come along, and that's where the kids go again. So I can see how TikTok will mature, and you can already see that the demographics are getting older.
And I've checked some facts about TikTok, and users are aging, that's for sure. But it also has the highest social media engagement rates per post. And so that's incredible that people not only watch the content, but they also interact with it, which is so important for this event as well.
Yeah, that's right. I can't remember the figures. I think on Facebook and Instagram it's 7%, less than 7%. Whereas on TikTok, I think you're sort of reaching 25% on engagement levels. And yeah, there's a huge difference on TikTok. But you do have to go back and say, okay, who is my audience? Who am I trying to reach? And if your audience isn't on TikTok, then I'm not saying you have to go onto TikTok. I'm just saying consider it. But the key thing here is understand the content on TikTok. The content is all about fun, engaging, stepping outside the box, being entertaining. So use that model and use it for Facebook or Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Our time is almost over, but if you could just provide me with a one-sentence reply to this, I would appreciate that. Do you think that TikTok could eventually help you with SEO? I mean, search engine optimization, and just leveraging your position in Google?
One sentence answer, yes, I believe it could. I don't think Google quite has access right now, but I think I definitely believe organically it can create recommendations and therefore power your search engine optimization in Google.
Jonny Ross, you've been a great opening of this engagement stage, because everybody has been really engaged and you have been engaged as well. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, and good luck with the rest of the event.